And welcome to this episode of the Selling Through Partnering Skills podcast, where I am joined by Alexander Lowe. Now, Alexander is a change consultant focusing on delivering revenue and has got a particular interest in technology. So, Alexander, welcome.
Thank you for having me, Fred. Delighted to be here in this virtual world.
Oh yeah, well, we'll come on to how long we're going to be in the virtual world in a little bit. But if you could just give us a little bit of background on yourself first, that will be useful for listeners, I think.
Yeah, certainly. First of all, I got the memo about the blue jumpers.
It's the way. It's Wednesday. We wear blue jumpers on a Wednesday. That's what we do.
So my background, sales through and through. So started out as an estate agent driving those branded minis around central London. For those people that remember, Mini 132 I apologise if I cut you up. Then I fell into recruitment, where I worked for Micropage International, recruiting sales professionals into the IT and tech sector, and left Page and then joined a consulting firm, PwC, then moved into a law firm. Towards the end of my time with that law firm, I was introduced to Sales Navigator by LinkedIn. So I've been on Sales Navigator as a platform since it first came to market 8 years ago now, I think. I then moved into a commercial property firm, JLL, and led the first ever global social selling program in the commercial real estate sector. Apparently, according to LinkedIn, they did case studies on me. And we did 500,000 net new in the first full 12 months and built a pipeline of 4.9 million. And bearing in mind that wasn't salespeople. So those were surveyors whose primary role was to execute real estate. Brexit happened. They gave me a check to go away quietly. I said, thank you very much. So I set up my own company, Beyond Sales Limited, with a view to consult back into professional services. And then I met Tim and Adam, who set up DLA Ignite, which is like an umbrella brand, if you will, of independent associates around the world, where we consult back into business across all sectors, helping them understand how to build social and digital skills into sales, marketing, ops, finance. But I have a particular focus on also the technology that supports all of this. And certainly if you look at the direction of travel where all of this is going, so social selling, modern selling, digital selling, remote selling, it's all the same. It's just selling for the 21st century is being underpinned by technology. However, my view is that technology is now starting to outstrip the behaviors, the understandings of traditional sales leaders, sales teams, CROs, CMOs, whatever you want to call them. So I go in and kind of help them kind of see the art of the possible and then take them on that journey of getting somewhere along what the art of the possible may well be.
Brilliant. So you've actually started to answer my first question, which is pretty cool, and which is why I wanted to speak to you and spend a bit of time sort of kicking this around, which is tech is affecting sales. You've just said that. You've actually said a little bit more, and that it's starting to outstrip salespeople. And what I wanted to ask you, whether salespeople should be worried by this then.
It's an interesting question, and I was guilty of this probably a couple of years ago, going, will salespeople be replaced by robots and so on. I think it depends. Where I would be worried is if your leadership aren't kind of bringing new concepts and new ideas to you, or allowing you to explore new concepts and ideas, or sales enablement, or RevOps, or whoever the team is that kind of delivers the tech. You also need to start to have an inquisitive mind, because what you will need to start to understand is how this is going to fit into the new world order of selling, and also how your buyers now may buy. Based on research we're now seeing in a post-COVID world, things like McKinsey recently said that buyers are prepared to spend upwards of $1 million on products and services in a completely virtual environment, i.e. this environment, light touch, self-service, video, without actually necessarily having to meet somebody face-to-face. So in order to provide that for your buyers, you're going to have to get a grip of all the technology that's going to enable you, and this is the key bit here, enable you to do this. But if you don't necessarily understand what the tech can do, and maybe what behaviors and processes you need to change to enable that technology, then fundamentally you could become redundant in the 21st century versus the sales reps or the leaders who are embracing this, learning and running with it.
So that's really interesting. And there's a word in there that I scribbled down and underlined 3 times, which someone listening to it who might be a bit worried should be picking up on? And you've talked about behaviors. You talk about behaviors and processes, but behaviors. So let me just check my understanding. That's the stuff that the humans who are using this technology are doing as a result of using the technology, correct?
So to simplify that, I'm going to steal from Liam Halpin, who's the lead sales at Lincoln Sales Solutions everywhere outside of the US, and he was running a webinar a couple of weeks ago, and he gave an anecdote of his grandpa. And he described how his grandpa bought a television with a remote control. Those of us that are old enough remember those days of having 4 channels and a remote control. But his grandpa didn't want to lose the remote control. So what his grandpa did was leave the remote control on top of the TV. Every time he then went to go and change channel, he got up off the sofa, walked up to the TV, picked up the remote control and changed the channel, put the remote control back on the TV and then sat back down. So fundamentally, that remote control was redundant because his grandpa hadn't changed his behavior and his process of changing the channel to enable the remote control to do what it was designed to do. So that's where we are in the world today, of the way that CRM is evolving, supporting technology is evolving. If you do what you always did 20 years ago, which is do everything out of a spreadsheet, don't share your contacts, this is how I did things because that's the way I'm comfortable, then all this new tech that's coming in, much like Liam's grandpa's remote control, is going to be redundant. And then you're going to turn around and go, well, that was a waste of time. It doesn't work. No, it works fine. You're just not prepared to change the way that you do things to get this to work for you, to still achieve the same outcomes that you're trying to achieve, which is fundamentally generate business opportunity to turn into pipeline, to turn into a pitch or a pursuit or what have you, to then win. That hasn't changed in the 20, 30, 40, 100 years of what sales is all about, right? What has changed along that journey, though, is how we buy, the experience we expect to have from the vendors of products and services as a buyer of those. And again, technology has driven that. You talk about the Uberization of things or the Amazonization of things. We have a certain expectation of things should work. But if you're a sales leader and you're just sat there going, yeah, but 20 years ago, that's what I did and it worked fine. Well, with the greatest respect in the world, if you carry on down that path, you are going to become like the dinosaurs, extinct, because it's just not how the world works anymore.
We're experiencing that very much, in the here and now. And would you say that the rate of change is becoming faster with the things that are available and the tools we've got and the stuff we can tap into?
Absolutely. I mean, if you're familiar with this, the stupid infographic, it's not okay. So it's not a stupid infographic, it's a crazy infographic. The MarTech kind of solutions that are out there. The infographic is this. All the logos are so tiny. It's like 5,000. It's ridiculous in terms of the sales tech world is now moving into the same space. However, we are now starting to see consolidation. Only last night, Salesforce acquired Slack for $27 billion. The view is that Outreach may well be the next one. The view is that maybe Microsoft will acquire SalesLoft. Someone might acquire ZoomInfo. So there may well be a consolidation of all this tech into the big players, so that where we get to is then the seller has a single source of truth. They're in one place. They're in one platform to then have all the information that they need at their fingertips. But back to the behavior piece, it's all well and good sitting there looking at a dashboard with lots of widgets and pie charts and data and insight. They go, that's nice. I'm just going to go back to cold calling. Because if you haven't understood what the data is, and I'm not suggesting cold calling is a bad thing. It works for some people, right? Some people, cold calling is an extraordinarily powerful way to get to their relevant market. For me, it's not appropriate. That's not saying it's not right for others. But even in the world of cold calling, they're now starting to use much larger data points to understand who to talk about, what to talk about, and so on. So yes, I believe that yes, it's outstripping in terms of just the AI. And again, I use the inverted commas for those that are listening to this versus watching, because AI is AI, right? And it's only as good as the data that goes in. But for example, how many of your listeners are aware that only 2-3 weeks ago, Dynamics and Microsoft announced a tie-up with C3.ai, Dynamics 365, and Adobe Marketing Cloud to be one of the world's first AI-driven CRM systems? it's this kind of thing that I'm not suggesting that people need to go and buy that tomorrow, but they need to be aware of what's happening in their industry to then look at that and go, that's interesting. An AI powered CRM system that then pulls in the marketing stack and has the CRM brain from Dynamics, which then obviously plugs in LinkedIn and varying other things. How might that help me do things better?
So again, let me just make sure I've understood this. Rather than me perhaps sitting down, opening up LinkedIn, scrolling a little bit, seeing that somebody's done something and trying to remember that, then going to my CRM and saying, let's have a look at what that's telling me to do. And, oh, I meant to put some information in there, but I didn't because I don't. And then looking across at a mate who's got an old-fashioned newspaper and looking at the newspaper, and then remembering a conversation that I'd had the evening before in the pub, if I've gone to the pub, but that is like open, bang, all there. And more to help me now go, well, what are you going to do next with that information? Is that a idiot guide to using it?
It's keep it simple, 100% right. The art of the possible today. And of course, I recognize there are many, things that can influence this in terms of legacy systems and software, your IT security protocols. It's not as simple as it is simple as we're describing, but of course there is complexity behind it. But if you were to build something from scratch today, in theory, you could have all the data that you wanted from LinkedIn Sales Navigator, a Bombora or a Spiker, a Relationship Science, a Zoom Info. You then plug in your gongs, which gives you the voice insight. You then have a sales loft or an outreach, which then starts to build in the automation around this. So literally the sales rep comes in tomorrow. And the idea behind all of this is to free up their time to do what they're being paid to do, sell. These are the people you need to talk to. These are the people you need to email. These are the people that you need to do. Here's your little AI coach in the corner going, based on Jack and Molly, who are top performing salespeople, listening into their sales conversations. This is what the AI, the tech is telling us to say versus not say at what time. These are the job changes. This is what's happened in this particular industry. Here's some nuggets of information. Nudge, you haven't spoken to this customer for 3 months. Maybe give them a call. These are the last three, these are the last 3 pieces of marketing outreach that have been sent to them. This is the last time they looked at the website. This is when they visited your profile. All these little touch points. It is kind of almost the Tony Stark, if you will. I know Justin, our mutual colleague, uses the Tony Stark reference around all of this. It is kind of getting to that, but it comes full circle back to the sales rep needs to sit there and then understand what to do with that. And what I fear is happening at the moment is that they're relying, or leadership maybe, I don't know, relying maybe too much on the automation route, because it creates a statistic, a number, a KPI. We sent out 1,000 emails last week through our whatever. Okay, good. We got X open rates, brilliant. How much that's actually converting into business conversations, or this and that. So yes, in short, this eventually will all be in one place for sales teams to do. And it could be, back to your question around, should sellers be worried? Maybe the role of the SDR will cease to exist as we know it today and morph into something else, because that front end lead gen could well be, in terms of outbound, could well be automated. It could well be driven by chatbots. It could well be driven, conversational AI, drift marketing, all this kind of stuff. Now, that doesn't mean that if I'm an SDR today, I'm sitting there going, okay, I haven't got a job. It's like, okay, how do I fit in this new world? What can I do to learn and develop? And if I'm a 42-year-old bloke, right? 42-year-old bloke. I started out life cold calling. Most of all I've done is self-taught to get me through this life, in terms of I've gone out there and learned. I'm fascinated by technology. I tinker with it, and I'm a lazy, right? I'm a bloke. I wanted the shortest route to a conversation to do something. Annoyingly, I didn't win the Euro Millions last night, which was 159 million quid. I hope nobody else did, because I'm getting a ticket on Friday, because that's my ticket out of here. Then I'll set up, an investment fund and go, invest in all this stuff, because, it is the way of the world. But, without being glib, it fundamentally comes full. And I know this is done to death by all the consultants, that it is people, it is process, and then it's technology. The challenge is everybody gets led by technology, because it's a shiny, touchy thing I can see and feel. And everyone knows the people bit is the hardest part. So that's too difficult to try and fix. So here's a shiny new toy, go and play with it without any real thought into how is this going to benefit them? How is this at the end user going to benefit me when what I'm already doing kind of works okay? I'm kind of doing my number. So why should I change?
Interesting. No, and I totally get it that people do get attracted to that shiny new thing. And I'm wondering though if there's a certain type of salesperson or sales organization even that wouldn't go towards the technology bit. They'd almost kind of ignore it. They'd stick their head in the sand and go, no, it ain't happening. It's people buy from people world, and that's what we do. We get that information because we can understand it. We can make 2 and 2 equal 5 because we're humans, and that's the brain works. Computers don't do that.
I agree. I 100% agree. Computers don't do the human aspects, and I do. You know, again, there's so much debate around the people by people. Do you need to be trusted? It really depends on your industry. If it's a one-off transaction, cold call, bish bash bosh, done. You need to build trust. Yeah, kind of like you, price all right, do it. If you're selling a multi-year contract worth, I don't know, starts at $250,000 upwards, that takes a 2-year sales cycle, then that is a people by people. That's a relationship driven sell across multiple pieces. But what's interesting, if McKinsey is churning out research saying, you know what, the people they're surveying and saying, I'm prepared to spend the best part of $1 million in a remote environment, you can't build a relationship in this way like you can when you meet somebody in a face-to-face. You cannot. But if people believe that they're now comfortable to start to spend these levels of money in this environment because of just the nature of what we are getting used to. You know, think about, I take it back to my estate agent days 20 years ago. Back then, you'd have had, probably a large white bloke sitting in his mahogany office going, you don't need technology, you need me, blah, blah, blah. We all met them. Fast forward to today, you and I can buy or sell a house without even talking to a human being if you want to, without even engaging an estate agent. Car wow. I can go and buy a car. I can put out my bid out there, and then all the agents around all the dealerships around the UK bid. So it's a reverse auction bid for what I'm looking for, and then it can be delivered to my house. I can finance the whole thing through CarWow, through talking to a human being, but probably through a chat function. That could be a £20,000 car. That could be a £100,000 car. So it's not for everyone, but data is going to, data is the new oil. It sounds very glib and cliche, but it is a data war out there. Why does Amazon know what you're doing? Why does Facebook know what you're doing? Why? It's because it's data. And that's then maybe a separate conversation around how much data is one prepared to give to somebody. From my perspective, I'm kind of past caring, but I'm happy to give it if it's going to give me a unique experience. If I feel that you are talking to me, I'm not suggesting that organizations have to go down the B2C or the e-commerce route, but I think we can certainly learn from it. You can certainly take aspects of how e-commerce works and that end-to-end buying process that is delivered. There is a certain expectation, if we think about this, is that the person you're selling to could be an IT director, could be CFO, HR director, whomever. One minute they've been in Amazon or their Ocado delivery or their banking app and everything works really nicely. The next minute they're having to deal with a crappy link that doesn't work properly, or a piece of research that's out of date, or they have to answer about 1 million forms to get to where they want to get to, or you've got the dear insert name, automated outreach because someone has forgotten to do something, and they go, hang on a second, this kind of should just work. Or I think it's the Aldous Huxley quote around experience is not what you feel, it's how you interpret. And that's always a combination of something to that effect. And it could be, let's say your company A in the same world. So you sell CRM systems, for example. So somebody has a really good experience with somebody at salesforce.com, for example, slick, one touch, two touch, it's all done. It's all like, yeah, this feels really good. Then somebody from Microsoft gives them a really bad experience. They're already at a level going, hang on a second, my expectations will be set by the market. This is what my experience should be in terms of the type of marketing collateral I get, where I get it, the type of conversations people have, who I have them with, what they know about me, without being Facebookish. And that's the thing, is that it is the, and I know it's the human to human, but it is the consumerization of the world, we have a certain expectation of things should just work. That's then where technology can support the seller to make sure that they are doing the right thing at the right time with the right people. But to your point, Fred, they still need to be able to sell. They still need to be able to articulate the why, the how, and the what. And it's Fallon Fatami who founded Node, and she just sold them to Sugar, Sugar CRM. And she was doing this back in 2015. And again, I paraphrase, but what she says something along the effects of the science is only as the science and the data is only as good as the art of selling.
I like that one. You can see I'm writing that one down, so just give me a moment. The science is only as good.
It's a quotable on YouTube. She's got like, it's like a minute thing. She's brilliant. She's absolutely brilliant in terms of what she's doing. But that's the key thing about this. There is no silver bullet in sales. There isn't. If there was, you and I would be very rich people, right? We wouldn't be having this conversation. Sales is tough. Sales is hard. And, you know, we all know information overload, the buyers are now in control of the process, blah, 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 blah. If you don't understand that aspect, then I give up and go home. I'm being honest, right? It's just like people Google, it's things on the internet. It's like not difficult. So sales is still hard, right? It's all about using data and insight and technology to create that touch point, that first touch point like that we're having. You then have to go into your sales process. And if your product, your service, your sellers, your product and service is crap, well then, okay, we need to look at that. But if your sales teams are just not equipped to be able to sell effectively, which is part of what your book is all about, then all this tech in the world is not going to help you be necessarily a better salesperson. That makes sense?
Absolutely. It's so, again, just to underline this, people shouldn't be afraid as such, and that this stuff is there to help, and it can almost speed up the process or speed up the point, I suppose, process where you can start to use those interpersonal skills. You can start to put your partnering hat on. You can start to ask the good questions. You can start to understand how they make decisions in the organization. It gets you to that point, and if you're not doing it, you might never be using those skills, because potentially there's other people out there that are using them, catapulting themselves ahead, and they might be worse salespeople, but they're having that conversation.
Yeah, 100%.
Cool. And so a lot of the stuff that you've been describing, you used the word you, and I've understood you then to be the sales organization. Hopefully the sales directors and VPs listening to this and going, we have to do something. This is our job. We need to be speaking to Alex and going, we need some help here.
Yeah.
You just said both, because that was my next question actually. Is like, okay, so I'm here and going, yeah, but my organization hasn't given me that. I get it. I love it. I want to do it. I like tech. I want to have more of these conversations. What advice could you give to an individual, if you like, to get themselves up to speed? What things are there that they could personally tap into and make a difference off their own bat, if you like?
It's a great question. Well, there's things like, okay, Sales Navigator, single license on its own. I think I'm paying 600 quid a year for it. Now that might be a lot of money for some SDRs just starting out in their life. I totally respect that. But if you can afford it, buy yourself, go and buy it. Because Sales Navigator gives you deeper, richer insights into what's happening in LinkedIn. Getting the bigger systems like a Sales Loft or Outreach, that's slightly complicated because those are enterprise-wide piece. Go and see, and then you raise it's a really interesting question, because the community is crying out, the sales community is crying out for this. And we see all the stats, the reps aren't hitting quota year on year. Well, is that because the quotas are wrong? Is that because we're measuring wrong? But it's Jared, Robin, and Galen, forgive me, I can't remember your surname. I think 6-7 months ago, they built RevGenius. So RevGenius is a Slack group community of salespeople around the world. It has grown from 0 to I think they're now 8,000 people worldwide in that time frame, because they recognized there wasn't this kind of massive water cooler, if you will, for people to come in as a community and just share and just help each other. And I think that should be a big signal to sales leaders, RevOps, sales enablement, all this kind of stuff. Like the coaching, the teams need help in all of this. And of course, this comes also down to experience. you can't replace experience. I've been through the, and of course, Fred, you and I have been through the hard school of knocks. We've been through the Glengarry, Glen Ross. You don't get your chair back until you got your 6 appointments. You just sit there until you literally, people shouting you down the phone, giving you abuse, because that's the only thing that you can do. I'm not going to use demographics, because I think demographics are bullshit. But these young sellers are coming in. They don't have experience through no fault of their own. They just don't have the experience. But they've come into an environment where their entire interaction with human beings has probably been in a digital environment. It's through WhatsApp. It's through Discord. It's through playing games on, PlayStation or Xbox. They haven't had to go out and network. They haven't had to go out and press the flesh like you and I did back in the day and kind of get really uncomfortable, if it will. And these sales leaders are sitting there going, yeah, but why do you not get this? Why can you not build relationships with people? Well, because the way I build relationships with people is not how you build relationships with people, yet they may well be selling to people of an age group. That's where they come from. There's a real tension between leadership not necessarily understanding the environment that the sellers are now in and growing up in, selling to an age group. That's the environment that they've come from when none of this existed. And it's then on top of that, you go, and here's a piece of tech which is can kind of automate all this for you. Of course, you're going to kind of maybe lean on the automation a bit, because it's kind of taking that fear away. So back to your point, go and check out Rev Genius. It's free to join. You have to find some people, maybe people in your network, and doing it. Go and find these communities and just ask for help, and just go and start iterating yourself. Go and follow the likes of Justin Michael. Go and follow the people that are kind of out there in this. Sign up to Gong. Sign up to Outreach. Sign up to all their blog posts that talk around where all this is going. And the key thing, this is what I do, is it's not one size fits all. So take a bit from there, a bit from there, a bit from there, and kind of build it into what works for you. Because I do find it ironic that, back to the sales quota piece, is coming from these research companies who also happen to have sales training programs, but the sales training programs they're apparently putting their clients through, the reps aren't hitting their quota. So what's not working here? Something is broken somewhere. But that's what I would do. Is if you're able to invest in some of this tech by yourself, do it, and then prove it. Go and find these communities like Rev Genius, which have sprung up out of nowhere to kind of help everybody understand this is the new world order, and these are the sort of hacks you can do. These are the shortcuts that are available, but also some of the tech you've already got within your organization. Go and learn more about it. As I said, our mutual friend Justin talks about technology quotient. Go and increase your TQ. Go and increase your understanding of actually what this technology, if I allow this technology, if I understood everything this system could do for me, like CRM, for example, in terms of reporting at a basic level, back to Liam and his grandpa with the remote control. If I actually just got out of the way of myself and go, right, I want to understand everything that Salesforce could possibly do for me, or Dynamics could possibly, or Sugar, or whatever the CRM system is, from a reporting perspective, from a data perspective. Go to your marketing teams. Give me all the website data we've had for the last 3 months in terms of website visits. All of it. I want it all. Don't, if they say why, I say I want it all. I want to look at it through my lens and go, that's some interesting stuff. Those companies are on a target list. They've been visiting our website. Another story, what a rep did, he went to marketing and he asked marketing for all the unsubscribes. And they went, why the hell do you want the unsubscribes to our email campaigns? He says, don't ask, just give me all the unsubscribes. What he then did, he called every single person that had unsubscribed and said, why did you unsubscribe? And then he started some of them, it turned into a conversation, well, I'm not interested in this. Okay, well, what are you interested in? Well, this, and this. Well, that's interesting. We actually do that. Do you? I had no idea. Marketing's working well then, if you don't know. So again, it's starting to think differently, starting to go, okay, that's not working. What else might I do? But I guarantee that they've already got access to data in some shape or form somewhere. if they just ask for it and just look at it from a different lens, a different kind of viewpoint, because of course, marketing will look at it from one perspective, finance will look at it from another perspective. It's, again, back to basics, the old white space. Go to finance. I'm not thinking on the fly. Go to finance. Want the last 12 months of billing across everything. Go and look at some, especially if you sell multiple products. Okay, where's a full service client? Then start to work backwards into the white space. So the white space being, well, they bought 2 of our products. There's a similar company in the same industry as them that's bought all of our products. So logic would tell me if they bought all of our products as the same company, we've got a story to tell because we can see the white space in terms of the revenue, and that will be there. So those are the sort of thing. And this again, it's back to basics. But you and I have experience in this because that's what we did way back when. Because that's literally all we could do. Finance, I want a spreadsheet. I literally want to do some basics in terms of this. The world in terms of where the tech is going now will start to then, that's my point around the art of the future, AI will start to tell you, hey, you haven't contacted this client in 3 months. Hey, these are the people who've done this. This is da 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 da. But if you haven't got that capability yet, go and dig, go and be curious.
Be curious is always fantastic advice. but what you just said there, what's so interesting, again, you can see me scribbling away manically here. It's all behavior stuff. It's all people stuff. Okay, invest in tech for you to use yourself. Find a community and log on and listen to it and ask questions and hear what they've got to say and look for people that relate to you. Yeah. What tech have we already got? Go and ask somebody, understand it. It involves somebody doing something. I think that's what you're trying to get across loud and clear, and I'm trying to underline, if you like, that you can just keep uploading programs and apps and things, and you just got a computer full of apps. It's not going to actually make a difference unless you do something with it.
Yep, take some ownership.
Yeah,
it's your destiny. It's fundamentally your destiny. As a seller, at the end of the day, you are in control of your revenue, right? You are in control of what you do. It's, when I talk to sales leaders and they go, I don't want you to create rock stars on LinkedIn. What if they leave? I go, that's got bugger all to do with whether I'm creating a rock star on LinkedIn or not. If they're happy, they're going to stay. If they're not, they're going to go. That's got nothing to do with them being visible on social and using social as one channel to do that. That's a fundamental issue within within the culture. And bear in mind, I spent 5 years recruiting salespeople, and usually the most time people came to me because they were pissed off because they got stiffed on commission.
So now AI is telling recruiters that somebody's sentiments on LinkedIn are that they're pissed off, and they're going to pick up the phone and ring them.
HP were doing this back in 2013. HP were doing this back in 2013. Internally, they could monitor flight risk. Google it. This is nothing. This is nothing new. It's back to being curious. I don't know whether HP do it now, but HP back in 2013 could predict flight risk. I mean, look what Microsoft released yesterday, or I think last week. Twitter went into a complete meltdown on their productivity tool. So Microsoft now, if they can in Teams, could start to look at productivity, and it's designed to be done in a positive way. But if you've got a group of people on a Teams call, how many people are actually watching? Who's writing emails? What screen are they watching? Starts to go, well, look, these meetings are a freaking waste of time, so stop doing them because nobody's concentrating. Now, the 1984 brigade are going, oh, this is against employee rights and so on and so forth. I mean, I saw it on GeekWire. They patented technology for physical meeting room technology to actually start to look at facial recognition. And so when we get back to that point, and it's not designed to cause everybody goes, oh, it's more KPIs for management to beat over a stick with. Well, it's not really. Call center teams, how do you think they're managed? No different in terms of their productivity. It's actually designed to help firms become more productive and using data and insight to work out, what, that team meeting we have every morning is a waste of time, and now we've got data to prove it, because no one listens, no one concentrates, and no one's in there. So it's, be curious, open your mind, think differently. I mean, I can think of any other cliches I can potentially,
They're good. We like a cliche. I've got to call the episode something, so carry on. Be curious, open your mind. Yeah. No, it's what what it comes back to is that it is still a human driving this stuff and
Yeah.
using it to make that decision, and we should take confidence in that. It can make us better.
Yeah. 100%. Augment the human aspect if you want to go down that, go down that route.
That's the fella. Augment the human. There we go. We have a title for the podcast, but people had to listen all the way through to understand where that one came from. Because no, that's pretty. You've been very, very generous on sharing your information there, and I know you're passionate about this stuff and want to share as much as possible. You are there to help. How do people get in touch with you?
I'm floating somewhere on social media somewhere. LinkedIn is I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn, Alexander Lowe, Twitter, Alexander_Lowe. I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook, I'm on TikTok, but LinkedIn is probably the best place. Mention this podcast if you want to reach out and connect with me, and I'm always happy to talk and just kind of share my views on life. And they are my views, right? You may not necessarily agree with them. It's my take on stuff. The advantage I have is that because I'm an independent consultant kind of floating around the world, I have the outside view in, so I'm not constrained by necessarily when we get kind of bogged down into the corporate world. And as we've discussed, Fred, this isn't one size fit all. This isn't necessarily for everybody. It's a bit of that, it's a bit of this, it's a little bit of that, and how can that then build into what I'm trying to achieve, which is generate business meetings. The outcomes remain the same, right? More meetings, more opportunity, more revenue. The logic still remains true in terms of sales.
No, makes sense. No, I'm sure. Well, hopefully people will reach out and want to talk to you more about it. I've certainly enjoyed it, and that's the beauty, like you said. It's an independent view, but that's why I wanted you to come on, because I knew you wouldn't hold back.
It's my absolute pleasure, and I'm going to put it on the spot now. I look forward to seeing this on YouTube.
Yeah, okay. I've just downloaded this really cool piece of AI editing software that I just delete the words and it takes the video away. No, I will do. I promise you, Alex. Cheers.
Brilliant, Fred. Thank you very much.